Welcome to Bethel Church's Leadership Podcast, a talk specifically designed to help you go further faster. It is our goal that you are equipped and encouraged to lead the way you were created to lead.
Today's podcast is entitled The Relationship Factor. The strength of your leadership will be determined by the strength of your relationships. I've got 3 things for you to consider today. Number 1, people follow people they know. Let me give you a couple of examples. When it comes to politics, one of the top indicators that you might be a viable candidate is something called name recognition. When it comes to the products in a store, many people gravitate towards the name brands. One of the reasons that franchising works is because people believe that they have an understanding or they can trust this particular product. The same is true of your leadership. They want to know what stands behind your name. So let me give you a couple of ideas here. Number 1, they want to know your background. They're looking for a way to connect with you. So let your people know some simple biographical information. They want to know, where did you go to school? What's your favorite food? What kind of hobbies do you have? This past weekend, I was in the Napa Valley, and I met a new couple. I had never met them before, and immediately we were looking for something to connect. And I found out that the couple had actually taught at the University of Huron in Huron, South Dakota. Well, I'm from Aberdeen, South Dakota. They are arch rivals when it comes to universities, and they're only 90 miles apart. Once we made that connection, we felt like we knew each other. Now, did we really know each other? No, we had just met. We'd been talking for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but it added some kind of connection that really helped propel the relationship forward. Second, people want to know you personally. Now, I'm not talking about best friends here. What I'm talking about is they want you to be a real, genuine person. They want to get a sense that you're authentic. In a recent podcast I was listening to, Mark Batterson said this: authenticity is the new authority. What's he talking about? He's saying that there's a lot of fake personas out there. There are a lot of people who are false or pretentious, and they try and get you to believe that there's somebody that they're not. So maybe they try and act funny when they really aren't funny. Maybe they try and tell you that they're smart by using big words, or maybe they exaggerate their accomplishments somewhere, some shape or form. But we know, don't we? We know when someone is being inauthentic. And yet, the age in which we live, this digital age, makes it easy for us to be inauthentic. We can airbrush our pictures, we can create a Facebook or an Instagram reality that has nothing to do with our real life. Now, in a way, this is understandable. We have a desire to hide the negative, hide the warts or the ugly about ourselves, and we want to magnify our good points. But when it comes to leadership, people want someone who's real, authentic, who's even honest about their failures and weaknesses. And what this does is it paints you as a real human being, and it's more likely to get you connected to the people who are following your leadership. So this is a vulnerable place to be. So let me tell you a story from my childhood. When I went into the 7th grade, I was literally the smallest kid in the entire junior high. In our junior high, there was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. I wasn't just the smallest boy, I was the smallest person in all of junior high. It made me very self-conscious. It made me probably overreact in a lot of different instances. And I really wanted to play basketball, and it seemed like that would never work. In 8th grade, I was still probably the shortest boy, and that included the 7th graders. And in 9th grade, I had barely grown at all. But between 9th and 10th grade, I grew 10 inches in 1 year. It was probably, for me, one of the greatest years of my life. You might say, Pastor, why in the world did you just share that story? Because in sharing that story, it might give you a sneak peek into who I am. It might show you a little bit of why I act the way I do or why I lead the way I do. I probably have a heart for the underdog or for the small person or someone who doesn't seem like they have it all together. But that can help you, and that would help us if we were on the same leadership team. Number 3, they want to know what you stand for. And this is simple. Everybody knows this. They want to know what's your vision, what's your mission for the organization, but they also want to know what are your non-negotiables. What are the things that you value the most that you're never going to say go any other way but with these? So that's the first one. Number 2, people follow people they trust. Trust is the glue that holds relationships together. Can you be trusted? One interesting study lately showed that the majority of people said they trust a stranger more than they trust their boss. Did you hear that? A majority of people trust strangers more than they trust their own boss. What has their boss done over the year or years that makes their followers, their employees, not trust them? Well, it's always along one or two areas. Number 1 would just be character, or I actually prefer the word integrity, because integrity comes from the root word integer, which just means whole. And so a person of integrity or a person of character just acts the same way all the time. They act the same way on the weekend as the weekday. They act the same at work as they do at home. That would be a person of in character. They're consistent all the way through. This has a lot to do with just the words that come out of your mouth, honesty. Another study, 2,600 top-level leaders at the University of Santa Clara said that honesty was the thing that they valued the most in their leader or in their boss. And so this just means that you have to say what you mean and mean what you say. Always tell the truth. Do not be afraid to admit when you do something wrong. Just say it. Don't lie and don't exaggerate. But you also have to follow it up with deeds. You have to lead by example. I read this quote by Ruth Barton. She says, "We set young leaders up for a fall if we encourage them to envision what they can do before they consider the kind of person they should be." Character is more important than competence. Character is that inward quality that makes you worth following. Unfortunately, I've seen in our society a lot of people who'd rather be admired for what they do rather than for who they are. I see a lot of people who are willing to sacrifice character for an outcome or integrity for achievement. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that competence isn't important. Character is most important, but competence is right up there, second most important. People are looking for leaders with a track record, somebody who can actually get something done. That means there has to be a track record with clear communication, that they're sharing what they think, what they feel, their vision, their mission, their plans, their goals on a regular and consistent basis. Number 2, they have to be good decision makers. If we make the wrong decision repeatedly, people will lose trust in us. And so we have to make the right decision a majority of the time. Not all the time. We're still human beings. We're going to make mistakes, fess up quickly, move on, but good decisions are important. Also, this day and age, we have to develop teams. We're no longer the Lone Ranger. We don't do everything on our own. We work together through other people to get things done in our organization. And then you've got to have positive results. You've got to increase those sales. You've got to grow the organization. You've got to get those souls saved. Whatever your metrics are, they have to be going upward and in the right direction, or eventually people will lose trust in your leadership. Finally, here's a good one. Consistency. In other words, your followers are wanting to make sure that you act in a consistent manner. Now, I'm not talking about these other two things in regards to character and competence. I'm talking about the way you respond to crisis. There should be something predictable about the way you respond to crisis. The way you respond to a crisis in the employee's life. There should be a predictability. You should have a character or a part of you that gives a lot of confidence to your employees so that they know what they're going to get when they come to you. Third and finally, people follow people that care about them. If you're in the business world, you might think it's kind of weird using the word love in a leadership environment, but I'm starting to see that in more and more books, that people really want to know that you love them, that you care about who they are. And so I'm going to close with 5 A words. So I want you to get straight A's in this particular area, okay? Number 1 is acknowledge. One of the ways you demonstrate that you care is that you just acknowledge that people are people. You acknowledge their humanity. Ross Perot said this a number of years ago. He said, you don't manage people, you lead people. You manage projects, but a lot of leaders try and manage their people. No, you lead them. You do that by acknowledging their humanity. You respect them. You honor them as human beings. They're not numbers. They're not titles. They're not positions. They are actually people. So in order to do that, you have to actually get to know them. You have to ask them questions. You have to learn about the people underneath your leadership. You have to discover something about them, learn what interests them. This shows that you value them. This shows that they're way more important than just a thing. It also helps you start to discover their strengths and where to put them in the organization. You really can't even empower someone until you really get to know them and their strengths and their uniqueness. Number 2, affirm. Affirmation is one of the things that every single human being needs. And one of the easiest ways to affirm someone is just to encourage them. Tell them that they're doing a good job. Recognize them for their performance. Encouragement's actually the fuel that keeps them going when things get a little challenging. And sometimes all you have to do is say, hey, you're doing a great job. And that will motivate them to get through that day, maybe even that week. But you can't stop with just encouragement. You have to keep improving your followers also. That means that you can educate them. You can train them in the areas of their strengths. And once you've done that, then somewhere along the line you will elevate them to a new position, and that will show them that you're really believing in who they are as employees. Number 3 is availability. When I talk about marriages oftentimes or dating relationships, I talk about this. I say love is spelt T-I-M-E. But I found that's true in the work environment also. Are you available to the people who are your direct reports? Is your ear available? Do you listen? Do you actually allow people to bring their cares and their concerns to you and actually listen to what they say? Do you have an open door policy? Now, I understand you can't have the door open all the time, but you need to have a policy whereby people know that they can bring their genuine cares to you. Do you look them in the eye when they're in your office? Do you give them your full attention? And the reason I say this is because there's a lot of people who are stuck looking at their computers or looking at their telephones and reading emails, or maybe they just want to send an email. I understand the efficiency in sending emails, but I also understand that an email's impersonal. I also understand that text messaging can sometimes dehumanize the process. And what we need is more humanity in the workplace. We need more direct face-to-face contact. Now, that doesn't mean just work environments. Maybe you can take a person out for lunch, or maybe you can just show up at one of their children's games, or maybe show up in a crisis situation in your employee's life, because your presence means more than you think it does. I read a book a couple of years ago by Bob Goff, and in that book, he put his telephone number. Now, I thought it was just a gimmick, so obviously I didn't call it, but my sister actually called the number, and she said he picked it up on the second ring. I'm like, wow, here's a guy who's way too busy to be taking phone calls. But this is what he's learned. The further up the leadership pole that you go, oftentimes the more inaccessible you become, and you need to make sure that you are accessible. Number 4, accountability. Now you might say, wait a minute, I thought we're talking love here. We are talking love. But if you love somebody, you're going to hold them accountable. If you really care about someone's improvement and growth and all of that kind of stuff, if they make a mistake, you're going to let them know. You're going to share with them ways in which they can improve themselves. Confrontation is a necessary part of leadership, and it's a necessary part of love. So here's just a couple of ground rules really quickly. Number 1, don't overreact. Everybody blows it. Everybody makes mistakes. So don't overreact. Number 2, give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it really wasn't their fault. Maybe there's a perfectly good explanation. So give people the benefit of the doubt. Help them to save face. Some of the ways that you can do that is by saying, this is what I think, or this is what I feel. Can you help me understand? And they have an opportunity to save face. Number 4, check your attitude. Number 5, admit if you made a mistake. And number 6, just be flexible. Finally, number 5, appreciation. Appreciation puts a smile on people's face. It tells them that you've seen them, that you've noticed them, that you've recognized them. Now, this recognition can be done formally or informally. Formally, it's a bonus, an award of some kind. Informally, it can be something as simple as you did a great job, or just telling someone thank you. Never, ever forget to tell people thank you. It is incredibly important. Now, this is what I want to leave you with today. Relationships and results are intertwined. They are intimately connected. So if you want your leadership to improve, you need to make your relationships strong. How? By being an authentic person, by building trust in your character and your competence and in your consistency, and finally, by showing people that you really, really care. Thanks for joining us for this podcast. I can't wait to see you next time.